I'm from Exceptional Individuals, and if you guys haven't heard of us before, we support people with neurodiversity find inclusive employment, as well as organisations become more inclusive and how they can really tap into that lovely neurodivergent talent. And what we call neurodiversity, because it depends on everyone's definition, is dyslexia, dyspraxia, autism, and ADHD. Now, they are the key ones because a lot of people have co-occurring conditions. So yes, there is dyscalculia, dysgraphia, as well as others, but they typically are as well as not singular. But it's just different ways of thinking. What we're going to include today is what we do, what does inclusivity actually mean, what is disability confident, examples of inclusive employers, the Equality Act 2010, and access to work funding. And hopefully this will give you guys a good base idea of what do we mean by being inclusive and how good is the support out there. Now, I'm not endorsed by anyone or anything, so I'll try and give you guys the most non-objective, honest advice possible. In the comments, I would like just to find out, what would you guys like to learn about neurodiversity in the workplace? Is there any particular areas that you're like, okay, I want to know more about discrimination, or I want to know, how do I hold people to account? Am I covered by anything? And like I said, do you know what disability confident? My employer just launched a group that I have no idea what it is. Well, I'm going to be talking about that. Performance and aspirational systems. How can people with neurodiversity find inclusive employers? Perfect. Well, with that ado, guys, that's given me a good starting point to help out. A quick overview. In the background is our lovely neurodivergent team. I think 10 out of 14 of us are neurodivergent. So we've got a real good mixture of all different ways of thinking. And we've helped organizations recruit talent. If you are looking for a job, I highly recommend submitting your CV to us because we have some really great partners. We do one-to-one job support. So again, if you're neurodivergent, completely for free, you can come and have a 1 hour one-to-one with us, obviously online at the moment. We do assessment. Say you resonate with having a neurodiverse condition and you're at work, we can possibly get you some funding, which I'll go into more detail later. We do workshops and guides like this one, as well as ones at organizations, and, you know, drop-in sessions here and there. So Sarah has said, as I established our neurodiversity employment resource group, I'm looking for resources on how impact neurodiversity hiring and neurodivergent employment support. Well, we've definitely got some resources that we can share with you. Oh, here's a quick video on who we are.
Did you know that 12% of the UK population is neurodivergent, but their unemployment rate is double? Our research found that 74% of people don't disclose they are neurodivergent. 65% of employers don't have accessible online applications. 61% don't know how to cater for their needs in interviews. And shockingly, 74% lack understanding about neurodiversity. So, we decided to do something. We formed a team of neurodiverse people to run the first employment agency to address these challenges. We connected with inclusive employers around the UK, helping them find and benefit from neurodivergent talent. And last year, we facilitated 116 work placements. We designed workshops and audits to help businesses understand how to build more inclusive companies. And for our neurodivergent audience, we offered training and mentoring, giving them the confidence to succeed in jobs and supported them throughout their employment journeys. We've also started to promote neurodiversity nationally, appearing on.
So why is it, despite so many dyslexic people being great problem solvers, many still find it difficult to get work in London?
And we felt like we needed to do something about that. What do you think that biggest barrier is then? Is it about the application process? Hoping to turn this around is the UK's first dyslexic job agency.
Matt Boyd has set up a service to help people like Annalise get past the written application stage to get a job.
And this is just the beginning. We have expanded internationally, working in India and America, raising awareness and changing the conversation around neurodiversity. Want to know more? Check out our website at www.exceptionalindividuals.com.
Woo! Nice. I hope you guys could hear that okay. As April mentioned in the comments, she did the storyboarding for that. Very impressive. You guys are always welcome to check out our website if you want more information. I just want to do a bit of a quick quiz just to see where your guys' understanding is. This is going to be some basic questions on inclusivity, neurodiversity, current opinions and studies that have been done, just to get an idea of where we are at. If you guys are competitive, the faster you answer, the more points you get, okay? All right, 1 of 9. How many people in the UK have neurodiversity? So who's neurodivergent in the UK? 1 in 10, 1 in 20, 1 in 100, or 1 in 500? So on your phones, click the color or the shape which matches to what you see on my screen. Oh, very broad. Yeah, so in the UK, it is actually 1 in 10. That's about 6.3 million individuals. It's a massive amount, and worldwide, you know, we're in, I think it's around like 3 billion. I don't know, it's a lot. And obviously the US even more so. So it really isn't as rare as people think. Now, just so you have an idea, neurodiversity is kind of like either 1 or 7 or 1 in 12. It changes depending what source you get it from. But dyslexia is about 1 in 10, so is dyspraxia, and autism is about 1 in 100, as well as ADHD. But obviously not everyone discloses, so it is hard to find that. Well, Eva's got that one. All right, 2 of 9. Is dyslexia a disability? Yes or no? What I always find really interesting about this one is you are both correct, whatever one you did. And I think it really depends on where you are in your life, your current kind of point of view. Well, first of all, we'll start off why it is a disability. In the UK at least, and this is the same with most countries, under our Equality Act 2010, a disability is defined as any impairment which affects day-to-day activities, which dyslexia would come under. So officially, it is a disability. Now, I don't mind that because it means that you're entitled to support and that, in theory, you're protected from discrimination. Now, the reason why it's not a disability is a disability has a lot of negative connotations. It is defined by what you can't do rather than what you can do. And I think dyslexia is not a disability inherently, it's a different way of thinking, but because of the way that society is, it isn't made to fit our type of brain waves and our thought patterns. So as a result, we're at a disadvantage. But if we were to make reasonable adjustments, for example, maybe it wouldn't be. Nice, Tai Chi. 3 of 9. Which one of these is not another name for dyslexia? Learning disability, specific learning difficulty, phonological reading difference, or neurodiversity? Is not another name for dyslexia. Oh, very broad today. Yes, so you guys, phonological reading difference is a fun word to say, but isn't official anyhow. Learning disability, I personally prefer the term learning difference, but each to their own. Specific learning difficulty, yep, neurodiversity. Just to clarify though, but what I mean by neurodiversity, because not everyone understands that term. Neurodiversity just means difference in thought. Neuro, brain, diversity, we're all different. So everyone on this planet is has neurodiversity. But neurodivergent or neurodivergence is if you're someone like myself who has a registered or diagnosed condition, or whatever you'd want to call it, difference. So that's that. And neurotypical is if you're, you know, mainstream, you know, aren't registered. 4 of 9. What one is not a type of neurodiversity? Is it dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, or dysphagia? I really butchered how to pronounce one of them, but oh well. Nice. And I'm glad you guys got that right, because I I couldn't even pronounce it. But yes, all of them are. Dyslexia is how the brain, this is an oversimplified way, but it's how you process words and the brain like reinterprets it. Dysgraphia can be like having a really tight grip and kind of really bad like coordination skills. It can also mean like disorientation. Dyscalculia is about like potentially understanding the maths but getting the symbols confused and struggling more with numbers and symbols. And the last one is like a swallowing throat condition. 5 and 9. Which of these employers have dyslexia? Is it Sir Richard Branston of Virgin, Lord Alan Sugar from The Apprentice, Jamie Oliver, the chef, or Theo Petitis, Dragon's Den? Woo, trick question. Who doesn't love it? Yeah, all of these people are diagnosed dyslexics, and they have succeeded not despite of their different way of thinking, but because of their different way of thinking. And for those, none of these people you would say it was a disadvantage or a disability, but we just got to get you guys, or myself included, over that point where it becomes an advantage rather than something that holds you back. Tai Chi, absolutely smashing it. 6 and 9. What percentage of managers do not understand dyslexia? This also counts for neurodiversity, and this was done in an official report. Oh, fast. Yeah, sounds like you guys have had some issues in the past, but you are right. Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of managers and HR people, and sorry if some of you guys work in that field, have the world's best intentions at heart, but just do not understand it. And that's the thing. I'm not saying they're ignorant, they know they do not understand it, but they'll try and do reasonable adjustments without fully understanding the problem or the need. 7 of 9. How many people do not disclose their dyslexia during the interview process? 16%, 29%, 35%, or 73%? Ooh, nice. Well, it's not nice, it's actually quite sad. But yeah, well done anyway. Yeah, 73%. And why not? Now, maybe it's because they're scared of discrimination. They don't want to get penalized for it. Maybe they don't know they are neurodivergent. It could be for a whole heap of reasons, but what we do know is that if you're not disclosing at the beginning, problems will arrive later down the line, and no one wants that on any side of the party. So what we need to do is figure out how can we make an environment which is more inclusive and makes people feel comfortable to be upfront and honest about how their mind works. Ooh, very interesting. Okay. Second to last, what age group is most likely to disclose their neurodiversity to an employer? The teeny boppers, 18 to 30-year-olds, the 31 to 40s, the 41 to 60s, or the 61 to 80 plus? Woohoo! Yes, it is the young ones. And I would normally ask you guys, but I'm sure you guys could imagine, it's typically because if you are younger, you're probably more likely to understand that you have something, that your brain works in a different way, because assessments have been on the increase, there's more understanding, they feel less discriminated against, they're more maybe empowered. The older demographic might not understand, might not realize. At the moment, there's a bit of a like renaissance of people kind of understanding how their minds work through their children. So maybe their children have been diagnosed at school, and because most neurodivergent conditions are hereditary, which means it runs in the family, they're like, Maybe I've got something, and then they'll explore it a bit further. Oh, Matthew creaking in there. Okay, last one, 9 of 9. What percentage of the world's self-made millionaires have dyslexia? And I've used dyslexia because it's the most common one and there's the most data. 5, 20, 25, or 40%. Ooh, yes. Oh, guys, yes, 40%. Think of that, 40% of all the world's self-made millionaires are reported to have dyslexia. I mean, yes. Am I a millionaire yet? Work in progress, but still, good odds. Now, is this because dyslexia gives you an advantage inherently? Or is it because if you struggle at a problem, you can go one or two ways. You can kind of give up and be an underachiever. And I'm not saying it's always your fault. Sometimes life just doesn't give you the right tools in place. Or you can think, screw this, I'm not going to work for this type of job, and go your own route and become self-employed. And that is what a lot of individuals do. They become self-employed. Now, I'm not saying we should aim for all neurodivergent people to be self-employed, but employers do need to think we are losing some amazing talent. So how can we change our processes to retain the Steve Jobs, the Bill Gates of the world? All right, let's see who's winning. Ooh, Sean, 3rd place. Well done. Matthew, a strong 2nd. And Gerard, oh, I did not see that coming. I think Gerard was a very consistent. And we've got runners up, we've got Eve and Rachel. Well done, guys. Always very impressive. Okay, so let me just get my screen back to order. Okay, let's see if I've missed any interesting comments. April, I once confused dysgraphia, yeah, they're confusing. I'm going to blame my terrible performance on my language. Yeah, I blame it on my dyslexia all the time. Apologies, I'm going to have to disappear. Oh no, we've lost Michael. We went in there to get on the podium and then vanished. But don't worry, I will send a link. And Rachel, I've been thinking more and more about how maybe self-employment might be better for me. There's pros and cons to self-employment, and that is always an option. Oh, what have I done here? Yes. So the first thing I'm going to show you guys is this. Now, this is again for the UK, but there's one in all the countries. This was voted the inclusive top 50 of UK employment. And they do it every year. And you can go on the website and see all the criterias. Now, one thing I really want you all to take away from this is that none of these things are perfect. And I'm not going to advocate for any of them. I'm going to say why they're good, but also why they might not be so good. Now, this list, if you notice, there's a lot of big names on there. Typically, if companies have a lot of money, they have more resources to spare to build things. So like Sky, EY, Bloomsburg, it's a starting point, okay? And what this normally means is that maybe they'll have a section of the company which has like a neurodiversity network or a disabilities network. And I've worked with a lot of these networks. Are they great? Well, normally they're still a little bit disgruntled with the establishment, but at least you've got a community. At least you've got some advocates kind of fighting your corner. And this is why I think it's always worth checking these, particularly because some of them are voted for by employees. And that is crucial. If you ever go to award thingies, always find out who gave them these positions. Well, did someone just pay him a large sack of money? Or did the people actually vote for these? Now, interestingly, Touchstone, which is quite a small charity, I believe, got #1 spot in this year. I don't know if they've released it for 2020 yet, but it fluctuates a little bit, but you normally get the big names. The next one is a good starting point if you're looking for inclusive employment, is to look at what companies have been founded by people with neurodivergence. And these are just a very small handful, but all I would say is it's a starting point. So sorry, what do you mean, Lisa? So the top 50 list, it was just called the top 50. I can't remember what company did it, but if you search in Google, it will pop up. But on to the founders. Virgin was done by Richard Branson, who very openly speaks about how having dyslexia. Walt Disney, another classic dyslexic. Jamie's Italians, which I think has kind of gone under, so maybe not a great example, but he's still a great entrepreneur anyhow. Ryman's, which was Theo Petitis, who was one of the dragons on Dragon's Den. The IKEA guy, can't remember his name, but he's a great example. He did a whole story, you know, how he was a very visual person, and now if you see the instructions, in theory, even if you're terrible at English or any language, actually, you'd know how to put the instructions together. We even got one of the richest person to ever exist in modern history. I don't know about Romans or ancient Egypt, but Henry Ford. Now, if you look up how much money he had in total, and he resonated with dyslexia. Bill Gates isn't officially diagnosed, but a lot of people kind of see the traits in him and he self-resonates. Also, a lot of people, and himself included, believe he has a lot of autism traits. Now, if you go to these companies, they might not always have something in place, but it's a great thing to bring to interviews. Like, rather than not telling someone you think differently, it's far better to go, you know, full out and say, yeah, so I understand your founder had dyslexia and they were able to use this different way of thinking to achieve this, which I greatly admire. I also have dyslexia, or dyspraxia, for example. And by setting it up like this in different blocks, you're building a case. It is very much up to you as an individual to turn the narrative around. I would love to say, you know, you should go in there expecting equality or understanding, but we currently do not live in that world. So what I always do is go in there, do your research, and educate them what it means to be neurodivergent. Because whatever their definition is, it won't be your brain because we're all unique. So anyway, this is one good starting point. And Peter has mentioned Sky is #1 this year. And thanks for the link, Peter, I appreciate it. Nice, we're not working with Sky yet at Exceptional Individuals. We've just started working with Virgin Media, which is exciting. But some of these companies, they do have good systems in place. So that's a second thing. Now, okay, great. So you want an inclusive company, but sometimes you don't always have the luxury of picking one that's on the list. This is how at EI, we explain to managers what is neurodiversity, because it's a hard concept to get your head around. Because if you go around and say, okay, hey, I've got ADHD or I'm on the autistic spectrum, all they're going to do is think all negatives. They're going to think all the things you can't do. And actually, you want to start changing the narrative. You want people to think, this person's great. So if you see here, you've got the line going across is like neurotypical, so people who aren't resonant of any of the conditions we spoke about. Now, you've all got different skills in life, okay? So these could be any skills. It doesn't have to be the ones in this image. Maybe you could be mathematical, creative, good at making decisions. And if you are really quite dreadful or not great in some of them, so maybe you're poor, you're not very creative, but you're really mathematical, now that's a spike. And neurodiversity, well, neurodivergence is the fluctuation of abilities. It's not the deficit. So I'll repeat that, it's the fluctuation of abilities and not the deficit of abilities. So if you are just bad at everything, which I'm sure we've all felt some days, but I promise you're not. That isn't being neurodivergent. What being neurodivergent is having like the differences. Now, for me, I'm really creative, so that would be one of my top spikes, not very mathematical. I'm really good at communicating, but not very good at kind of like, again, writing things down. So it's always worth to try to make your own spiky profile. Try and think of what are the skills that you need to focus on to like push a bit higher. But more importantly, is what are the skills that you're already doing great in that you need to learn to highlight better. So feel free to, take a picture of this, or I think we got it on our website. It's always a thing that I like to bring to interviews to show people. Or I get my little trusty whiteboard pen out and I like draw for them. And they always get excited because they're like, oh, what's happening? All right, we're doing great, guys. Keeping strong. Next place is workplace needs assessments. Now, I am going to talk about a government grant in the UK, but some workplace needs assessments do exist all over the place. And we can do them, though you do have to pay for them if you're not in the UK, unless there's some other government schemes that I'm not aware of. All this means is like, you've probably seen it in your office. You go in and someone's got like a bad back and they got a special chair that's all like soft and padded, and you're super jealous. You're like, I wish I had that chair. Or they've got like special desks that kind of raise up. Now, this is really common for physical injuries or disabilities, and no one has any issues. Like, okay, this person's in a wheelchair, let's put a ramp. No questions asked normally, particularly on the big organisations. But what people do not realise is that the same things can and should be done for invisible conditions, disabilities, differences. And under our Equality Act, at least, organisations they have to make reasonable adjustments. The word reasonable is a little bit of a grey area, but typically it means, does the company have enough money to pay for it? Is it going to break the bank? Do they have to reinvent the wheel? So with that in mind, what are some of the possible reasonable adjustments that you might be able to get? Now, first of all is assistive technology. Do any of you guys use any tech at the moment to like help you with your life? I'm pretty reliant on Dragon myself. Yeah, Rachel, Dragon and text help, brain in hand. That's a very graphic image. Now, they can be lifesavers, okay? But they are not miracle solutions. They will not fix it. So one I recommend is Global Autocorrect. It's a really good spelling software, which as you write, and if you do spelling mistakes consistently, it automatically changes it. So that's Global Autocorrect. Dragon, which is speech dictation. So as you speak, it writes it out. Oh yeah, Gerald, he's interested. He's writing some notes down. That's what I like to see. If you guys have ever used Dragon in the past, I would say give it another go. It's gotten a lot better in recent years. I use, on my mobile phone, the best one I use is Google Keyboard, completely free and really accurate. You can also get Dragon on your mobile, but I don't prefer it as much. We've got Claro Read, which can read your screen out, which again, it's not for individuals who cannot read. It just helps with how you digest information and how you process. I've got a Mac, however, I don't want to brag, it's a really old Mac, it's not that great, but it's got an automatic feature which already reads things out. Or if you've got no budget and you're on a PC, I just go into Google Translator and translate whatever I've written all back into English and get that to read it out. Either way, there's lots of helpful tips. Sean has said use Grammarly. I love Grammarly. I use it all the time. It tells you all the full stops, punctuation has to go. It's one of the few things I actually have a paid account for, and I recommend that. Now, April has said, when I was at university, I used special software such as MindJet for mind mapping, Read and Write Gold, especially to make reading on screen easier, and Audio Note Taker to make more efficient notes from audio recordings or lectures, seminars, and mentoring sessions. Peter says he's used Text Help, Dragon, Brain in Hand. Oh, I've not actually used that. I thought that was a joke. Is that software? And MindView. MindView I use myself. It's like a mind mapping software. Really user friendly. But there's a whole heap of goodies and stuff. Now, before you guys shell out, because I'm not going to lie, it's expensive, organizations should be willing to pay out if you can justify how it will make a difference. The trouble normally arises when, if you can use the equipment for something else, so for instance, they're probably not going to buy you a laptop just because dyslexia. But if you're using something like Dragon, which you're only going to use in the office, now that is an expense you can normally justify. But thankfully, under the Access to Work scheme, which as far as I'm aware is only in the UK, you can get these things for free. So without further delay, what is Access to Work? It's you, first of all, you've got to have a job. And it's got to be a certain amount of hours. So if any of you are in a job, even if you've been awarded a job, or you have like some starting in a few months' time, you are eligible. You've also got to apply for the grant in the first 6 weeks. If you do that, it's going to be free 9 times out of 10. And what organization doesn't like that? You also should have, if you have less than 50 employees, it's also probably going to be free, even if it's past 6 weeks. And you can also apply for it if you're self-employed and have made over £6,000 a year. So it's quite open to most people. And you apply for the grant online, nice and simple. You can also do it via us, just go on our website and we can do all the paperwork for you. The government will look on their computer and say, yes, and that normally takes a couple of weeks, and then you get the training. And this could be soft training like mentoring, coaching, or equipment. Now, I'm going to be totally honest with you guys. If you do it the free way, you're looking at about 3 months, the whole journey from start to finish. It's not quick. If you are doing it private, which could cost like 250, 300-ish, you know, it varies. That can be done like in 6 weeks or even quicker. So bear that in mind. All right, let's just see what the messages are saying. Matthew said, will the organization still pay out if you work in a school as a teacher? All right, so schools are tight. And I'm sure you don't need me telling you this. They're stretched for budget. You are still eligible if you're in the UK, and this includes England, Scotland, Wales, not Northern Ireland. They have a separate scheme. So it still exists, but not in that same form. We've got, I use Immersive Reader and Read Out Loud on MS Edge and Speak Back on Android. Brilliant. I'm always finding new equipment and stuff. But I recommend applying for it anyway. You know, why not? The next thing we got is the lovely Equality Act. And as mentioned, this does exist in most developed countries in some shape or form. And the Equality Act was a bunch of acts, right? We had loads. We had like ones from the 70s, the noughties, like recent, and they got all the good ones: age, discrimination, religion, sexual orientation, you know, all the class ones, and squished them together in 2010 and made a comprehensive document, which I read this morning actually, and it's not the funnest read, though there is some good YouTube channels which go through all of it in detail. Now, just so you guys know what you're covered against, in theory, may I say, and we'll go on what I mean about that in a minute, is age. So no, age is the only one which is a little bit of a caveat, okay? So you shouldn't be discriminated against in any of these ways, but in certain situations you can be discriminated with age, and that's because, you know, if you're getting quite frail, you can't like work on a building site in a conventional role, for example. But disability should be quite inclusive, gender reassignment, race, religion, sex orientation, pregnancy, marriage. These all come under the Equality Act. Now, why do I think in theory? Because it's, say if you are discriminated against, it is a right palaver to get this sorted. You know, if you want to take it to court, there's been very few instances where I've been in a position where I've recommended the individual to take this further. I'm not saying you shouldn't or disregard it, but you need to have proof to some extent. So if you believe you are being discriminated against, keep emails, you know, voice recordings, if people have been aware that you recorded it. Evidence really is key, but let's hope it doesn't get that far. As Rachel said, it is hard to prove discrimination. It is, however, a good thing to chuck into a discussion when if you're having a meeting or an interview, saying, hey, I just like, under the Equality Act, I just want to confirm that you guys are open to reasonable adjustments, because they're not going to say no to that. So would I recommend, you know, using this as a, like, you best support me or I'm going to throw the book at you? No. But is it definitely a good starting point to get the conversation rolling? Absolutely. Oh, Rachel, it sounds like you're speaking from personal experience. Oh, sorry about that. It's not fun. All right. Next part is our partners. And what I mean by, I mean, let me just quickly check how we're doing for time. Cool. What I mean by our partners is that as an organization who supports people who have different ways of thinking, we go to lots of organizations all around the country and we're like, okay, so you guys, you have the right mindset, you want to help your employees, but you don't know how. Rather than try and come up with suggestions on your own, let's work together. You know, our team, we have every condition under the sun here. You help us and we'll help you. So it's like a partnership, hence the name partner. Now, all of these, and by the way, this list is always growing, are people that we have directly partnered with in some shape or form. So we've got the government, Kantar, Universal Music, Roche Pharmaceutical, Ford Motors, a whole list. And this list is growing. And what it means to be our partner is that we have trained face-to-face every one of these. So everyone has had training in neurodiversity, and some agreement has been reached, such as you are guaranteed an interview, or you're allowed support in the process, or you'll definitely be having a workplace needs assessment once you join. I'll be honest with you, the agreement we have is a little bit different for each organization, but what we can do is get you a foot in the door. And if you are interested in any of these positions or any of these companies, I highly recommend getting in touch with us. Oh, hello. Who's distracting my webinar? All right. No. Oh, it's great. Troublemaker. Okay. So this is one thing I would say. You can always go on our website for a more, like, a list which is always up to date. The next bit is disability confident. And disability confident is, again, a UK initiative, But even so, it's worth knowing because a lot of the companies that are signed up as disability confident are international companies. Now, I don't know if you guys remember, we used to have a system in the UK called like 2 ticks, and if you were inclusive, or supposedly, you'd get 2 ticks. Now, this was problematic. It wasn't great. It didn't work very well. So they rebranded it. They started from scratch and created this. And there's 3 stages. So you've got disability confident employer, and disability confident leader. I have worked directly with the government to help like create and adjust this, but there's pros and cons. The pros is that a company has actively shown willingness to show that they're making reasonable adjustments. The cons are it's incredibly easy to get your hands on one of these like badges. Just quickly going back to the comments, got, will you be moving into a built environment, construction industry, in communications? You do not engage with this sector employers. In some extent, which we are working with companies at the moment to get those sort of employers. Matthew has said, on the government website, it says that you can only get help from Access to Work if you work for less than 60 hours. No, that's not right. So it's more than 16 hours, not less than. So yeah, definitely more. We have a thing on our website which can help you find out if you're eligible. And Sean said, how many of them understand hidden disabilities? Gerard, not a lot. They try their best, but that's the honest truth. But this is, again, a starting point. So, for example, these people are disability confident leaders. All you need to do is go on the internet and type disability confident employers, right? And you'll have a massive list of all the companies that have declared that they will not discriminate. They will actively employ people who think differently. And the first level, which is disability confident, in my personal opinion, scrap it, forget about it. Like, you could go on the website now and sign up. Easy stuff. Doesn't mean much. The second one, disability confident employer, you've got to do a little bit more, you know. But to become a disability confident leader, which is like the third final stage, you have to show some real initiative. And that's why it's not really any point looking at the other two. Though I'm sure if the people making it would disagree. Now, why is this good and why is this bad? It's good because it's a starting point. If you have no idea what jobs you're looking for and you want just some direction, going on a web page where people have at least in principle said, we're going to make an effort, is a great place to begin. The reason why it's not great is that, let's take Sainsbury's, for example. I'm not discriminating against them. I love their shopping and food. But anyway, say someone in head office, yeah? They're like, all right, guys, we need to get inclusive. What they'll do is they'll make all the policies in place. They'll do the things with the tick boxes for the award, and they'll get a big label that says confident with disability. But do you think the managers on the floor, on the stores in your local village, were even told about this? Do you think they have any understanding? No. So if you're working like a head office, people should be aware of it, but on the ground, maybe not. I always find if you can find an organization which is quite small, who's on this list, they're going to be pretty switched on. The bigger companies, however, maybe not. So again, it's worth reminding whoever is interviewing you that, do you guys know that you're registered as disability confident? The good thing about being a leader is that typically you're guaranteed an interview. So you declare you're disabled and you get an interview, which is nice, because for me, I actually perform really well at interviews, but my applications are terrible. So that helps me overcome that first boundary. Okay, and let me... Oh, guys, I can't really see. Can someone just quickly put the time in the chat box? Maya. Ah, perfect. Thanks, guys. Okay, so just finishing up. Now, these are ways that if you're an employer, you can support your team. And if you're an employee, you can suggest them to your managers or whoever. So first of all, get awareness training. It is so essential. Now, I highly recommend us, but you could honestly get it anywhere. And make sure it's by people who are neurodivergent, and it's not just your conventional, oh, we do unconscious bias training. You know, great, but that's not enough to understand different ways of thinking. Next one, workplace needs assessment as soon as the person gets the job offer. Why I say this is quite often people have the assessments done when they're on their disciplinary, when they're on their personal improvement plan, when you're at the end of the journey and you hate the company hates you, and they just don't want to get sued. But if you do it at the right beginning, you're going to have all the support structures in place to give you a fighting chance to be able to pass that probation period and live a happy life. Third one, seek companies which are disability confident. Again, not perfect, but it's definitely better than doing nothing at all. And it's always good to say you've researched a company and you've appreciated where they stand. Fourth, research what reasonable adjustments may be right for you. This is really important. If you go to anyone and say, okay, I've got a problem, fix it, they'll be like, no. But if you go to a person and say, I can do all of this, I might struggle with this little section, but this is how I recommend we overcome it together, suddenly you've got a conversation and people will start listening. Fifth, I believe, ask for alternatives to psychometric tests. Now, if you guys don't know what these are, you know, these are tests where you've got to say, what would you do in this scenario? And it's scenario based, but there is a right or a wrong answer. Life is not like that. And if you are neurodivergent, your brain thinks in a way which means you would naturally not come up with the answer that they would suggest. I always bring this up. It sounds like I've got like real beef, but I once applied for B&Q and failed because I didn't pass the psychometric test. I'm pretty handy at woodwork, may I say. I also applied for a job at KFC and got turned down. Come on, I could make great fried chicken, but it wasn't for me. So ask if there could be an alternative, and more companies are getting to that. Now, any questions or forever hold your peace. And as we mentioned, I will be putting this on our YouTube channel so you guys will be able to see. Agreed. Adjustment information does not filter out into the bigger teams, even if you are a key focal role. Very agreed. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to say. If not, here are our lovely details. Even if you're not in the UK, you are very welcome to get in touch. You know, pick up the dog and bone, give us a call, and we can either help you with a job, if you're currently in a job, or if you're a manager on looking to make the company a little bit more inclusive. And yeah, April's doing our YouTube, so we thank her for that. Now, okay guys, you'll feel free to unmute, and if you have any questions, ask me. If not, you all can have a lovely day. And I hope that was useful. Feel free to put a little emoji up if you're happy. Like more information on alternative psychometric testing? Good question. Now, alternatives are, I do a video interview, for example. So if they want to understand if your personality is the right fit for the role, I ask for either a face-to-face interview, which again, if you're a disability competent leader, they should agree to. I ask if, can I submit a video instead, answering the questions and how I rationalize them. So rather than it being quite, you know, on, off, it's a more fluid. Okay, any last questions? I've got 1 minute to go, guys, and I'm off the clock. All right. All right, cool, guys. We are happy days. Have a lovely day all, and it's been a pleasure as always. Keep safe, and we're always here if you want to get in touch.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, my pleasure.